At this point, I've got a small lab set up, and I'm basically going to do some information gathering on it first. So I'm getting the stream fired up, so just give me a minute to kind of get everything sorted out here, and then I'm going to kind of get to the fun bits of what I want to do here. Okay. Basically, I'm running on my local laptop a Kali instance, and I'm also running some virtual machines here, and they're all kind of in a network. They're all in their own little virtual LAN, so to speak, but it would be the same thing as if I actually sat down and was to connect to some network physically or over like the wireless, let's say, and from there, if I, basically said, okay, I want to probe this network and see what's on it and didn't know anything about it, this is basically where I would start. So, when, maybe you kind of maybe saw me set up my Kali environment, and it's, it's a very simple, straightforward, basic out-of-the-box environment. It's not really anything that you can't just download right off of the website from Kali.org right out of the box. So that's, as a matter of fact, that's exactly what it is. The only thing that I did with my distribution is I did an apt-get update, I did a dist upgrade, so I upgraded the distribution, and then I installed OpenVAS. I did OpenVAS setup, and pretty much the only other little things that I've done to this environment out of the box is I've configured Burp Suite. So I've actually got Burp Suite running, and I need to actually keep it running because every time that I process anything through my browser, oops, I've already got it running down here, I think. Every request that I make through this browser in Kali here, let's see here. I'm just gonna close this. Okay, there we go. So whenever I'm doing anything with Firefox and Kali, I want to sort of keep all of the requests logged so that I can kind of pull them apart and look at all of the different pieces of them, and then from there I can if I wanted to potentially modify the requests to send back and different things. So this is just it's just a proxy system. So actually a free community edition version of this proxy. So the main thing, I mean, Pro gives you other cool stuff, a lot of cool features with Burp Suite, but we don't need it for this context. Now, I've also got Metasploit, and let's see if I'm running it. Yeah, so I have a Metasploit console opened, and there's really some, I would say, very important material regarding Metasploit, with the Metasploit Unleashed from Offensive Security, and I do intend to do some material specifically on that because I think it's the starting point for a lot of people that maybe are coming from an infrastructure background and they want to sort of understand what is cybersecurity and kind of what can you do with Kali, for example. They hear about Metasploit and it's sort of intriguing, so we might use Metasploit in our exercise here that I'm doing. So I also just want to stress that everything that I'm running is contained locally, and all of the systems that I'm going to be accessing are my own vulnerable virtual machines that I've downloaded from vulnhub and set up, or from Rapid7, and those machines are running locally on my box, and they're just for the purposes of this lab. So this lab is not intended to demonstrate to anyone how to do anything malicious. And if you should decide to ever do anything malicious, that is obviously going to impact you with consequences that you have to deal with. So people have been known to, of course, use many of these techniques that I'm kind of covering here to attack, and this is attack hacking sort of stuff. So penetration testing techniques are, part of what I'm doing here, especially a large portion of it. I mean, this is by no means comprehensive. This is sort of a quick little, just fired up a lab, installed Kali, dropped some vulnerable machines in. Now I'm just gonna kind of like go after them and see what I can see. So a procedure that a pen tester might use. Some of the stuff that I'm doing might kind of fall in line with that, but overall, everybody that does this kind of stuff has their own kind of approaches and ways to do it. So this is just kind of like some of the ways that I've kind of built up the methodology for when I go in and kind of try to audit a network that I need to kind of learn about. And so when we go into a system and we've never seen it before and we're here for the first time, we of course we want to just see, like, where are we, right? So let's just take a look in a terminal here, in a terminal shell, and let's just see where we are. So here we are, we're on 192.168.226.129. So this network address is just some network, right, that we're just on, okay? Now, at this point, where do you go? What do you do? There's several things you can do. The least noisy thing to do, because, well, I wouldn't say the least noisy, but there is actually very completely there's lots of ways to not make noise on a network. And in the terms of, like, you look at companies like offensive security and things, and there's like these different these different sayings that we've got, or these communities have, and one of them is that the quieter you are, the more you can hear. So one thing we don't, that if one was doing pen testing, which I wouldn't call this pen testing by any means, you wouldn't really want to make a lot of noise. So in my case, I don't really care, because this is, of course, my own little lab, and I'm not really doing any kind of like countermeasures or anything here. But just for the sake of just getting some quick data without doing too much crazy stuff, let's just see what we've kind of got out here. So just with we want to be kind of lightweight, and like if I was in an environment and I was on a live network and I was sitting there looking at stuff, I would want to be really careful about like what kind of tools I was running on that network, because let's just say that hypothetically I have a production system, and I am now going to start to send out all of this kind of like sometimes this very aggressive information gathering stuff. It can be disruptive to those kind of systems. So one thing that we want to do is we want to try to be quiet as possible, and we would really want to like look at individually and say, okay, what do we have on this network? Like, what is this network? What makes up this network? So 226.1 seems to have some open ports that could be interesting. .2, again, we look at these things and we kind of go down the line and we go, okay, every single one of these things are potentially, there's ports that are potentially open that we might be able to make a connection to and do something with. So you know, that's essentially like the first step, right? Is knowing, you know, what is on the network. Now, ZenMap is a graphical user interface for Nmap. Nmap is a pretty typical tool that, you know, we will commonly use in a you know, in an environment. So one of my favorite little Nmap things to do is just quickly, if I was to quickly gather information, would just be basically like minus s capital lowercase s capital N, and then like just throw the network address in here, and then just kind of just pop it. Oh, 226, my bad. I'm on the wrong. See, that's not going to find anything, obviously, because we've got to have the right address in here, which is going to be 226. Okay, so I just kind of like throw that out there real fast, and then it just very quickly will just scan that subnet, and then I can really rapidly find, like, you know, just see, okay, you know, there's some stuff on here, and some of it has, you know, there's a couple of things that have some ports open. We can quickly, just really quickly see, and that's not even with probing. Like, we didn't even like probe anything. To actually probe, we would be like saying we'd make a connection to the thing and try to like probe every port, and then sometimes we'd probe it multiple different ways, and sometimes we would see like how it was waited for it to respond to us, and then depending on like how it goes about responding, you know, we would actually say, okay, this thing isn't allowing us to connect to it, but that infers to us that it's denying us a connection to it, and that infers to us that it's up, right? So like literally we might be able to say, like, there's different responses, okay? It's just because something, like, there's a difference between like trying to make a connection, you know, over a socket to something and just having the thing drop versus it being rejected. Okay, so if when it looks at like the specific differences there, it can say, ah, you know, this wasn't just dropped, this was actually rejected. So therefore, there's something filtering my connection coming into this, and you know, that's that. You know, so that can explain different things. All right, so I'm gonna fire up basically like one of my personal favorite tools here, which is Sparta. I like this tool. It's kind of a, I don't know, I kind of think of it like as a automatic information gatherer. It's pretty noisy though, so I would be careful like how I go about using it, but you know, it's definitely an important tool. So I'm just gonna pop that in there. As soon as I pop that subnet in there, Sparta goes to work. So first thing it does is it just kind of starts with this Nmap stage 1, and all that's gonna do is just gather like some critical IP addresses that it wants to do some more deeper stuff to. So it doesn't really want, like, one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to like do everything to everything, okay? You only want to do everything to what you need to, you know, to work with. You don't need to work, you don't need to try to hit stuff that's down and just probe it to death, unless you're just, you know, doing something extremely comprehensive. So, you know, we're now able to identify, hey, here's what's up, this is what we can see, and then based on what we see on this network, which contains, you know, multiple hosts, you know, we see this range of IPs in here, and we can think of these as potentially, you know, these might be either the targets or ourself. In this case, 129 is us. So if we look at what, you know, what we immediately can see, this is us. Okay, now 128 is something else, and there's some stuff running there that we've already picked up. 130 is the same thing. So, you know, we've immediately already identified like certain things right off the bat, and specifically we know we can see without, you know, any time having been passed. You know, we've got this guy, now we've got that, and we'll probably see some other stuff pop up here if we just wait. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure we should. We're doing Nmap Stage 2 now, and we're also running a bunch of NIC2 probes, so we've also got some screenshots of stuff. So one thing that this automatically will do is grab a screenshot of whatever it finds at a certain you know, place. So it on port 80 of this IP address, it's you know, this is what it sees, and it also got back a response, bad request, when it sent this over here. So if we look here, screenshot of port 80 on this 130. So we can immediately see here there's a web server running. And there's also some things that we might be able to potentially crawl. Here's another one. And, you know, yet again, we have a blank server page here, and so we immediately know, hey, you know, there's a web server here. We have a lot of information about it just right based off of that. And if we start to look in our NIC2, you know, report here, we also will probably find quite a few things that are very interesting, and we have to kind of go line by line through this and say, okay, Apache 1.3.2, okay, mod SSL 2.8.4, OpenSSL 0.96b. Okay, so like every single thing with the versions that we're looking at is super important, because what we can do is we can come in here and we can say, let me see if I might have to look up the syntax real quick, but see if I can remember off the top of my head here. Exploit DB. Where's my exploit DB? Exploit DB. Yeah. Okay, well, I'll have to look that up. It should be on there. Nevertheless, that shouldn't really matter, because you should be able to go to exploit DB. Usually we would run a command and search this. I'll look the syntax up though. Okay. All right. And now if we, you know, if we basically come in here and we say, okay, let's look for, you know, something just based on what we see from NIC2, right? And now, you know, we really don't have a whole lot of information. All we have here is we see something like Apache 1.3.2. All right, this is very specific. May or may not actually come up with anything. And I gotta see that the exploit DB is so much better, because I don't have to beat captchas every time and stuff. Just run the command. Cars. Is there actually a car in that one? There's no cars in the other ones. Oh my gosh. Okay. Come on. Search. All right. So as a matter of fact, it immediately does come back, and there's actually a couple of things specifically for this version, but they're for the Windows platform. So I could look at this though, and I could say, okay, like, what is this particular one? php.exe remote file disclosure. It's so, you know, this is a remote file disclosure vulnerability. I'm not gonna, you know, get into details about how those specifically work, but it could definitely be bad. if coupled with another exploit, it could potentially let me actually do exactly what I need to do, because I would this would be the kind of thing that would let you do something that's basically like having eyes inside of something you might not be able to see inside of normally. And when you can do that, you can target and craft attacks to target things very specifically, and you can actually like inject stuff in there to the remote system exactly where you want it to go, because you can see where it's going. So, you know, that's pretty handy. So as we kind of continue down here, we can look through. We have to enumerate and look through every single thing. Immediately, this thing comes up and says, "Hey, there may be some vulnerabilities here." Like it already found like vulnerable to remote denial of service and possible remote code execution. Like that's really interesting. So we you know, potentially want to look this up. Vulnerable to local buffer overflow, which allows attackers to kill any process on the system, which could be handy in certain cases for certain things, like if we were trying to inject something at the remote side and we were getting denied because of antivirus and we just wanted to like kill a remote process, for example. Vulnerable to overflows and mod rewrite. Okay, so there's quite a few. Like we could just, you know, we will ultimately have to, but we can kind of go down the line and start to get an idea that, hey, you know, there's some interesting stuff here. But let's look first and see what we can see. I'm gonna start with, you know, this .130 host. So this is actually Metasploitable 2. It's a classic vulnerable machine to attack. And I wouldn't exactly say that it's a hard one. I mean, I've cracked multiple different things in it before, so I wouldn't say that this is like completely blind Kali hacking for me. The other, you know, machines that that I'm looking at, those machines actually are blind. So everything else in here I'm blind on except for probably this one. And but you know, nevertheless, I'm gonna let's play chess with ourselves and just kind of pretend like I don't know anything about this. All right, so if I look through this, I see a lot of versions right off the bat. Okay, so seeing this, I can tell, you know, I can just start looking exploits up, right? And I need to know a little bit about the system that I'm attacking. So I already have some information here, specifically kind of like some stuff about the kernel, possibly, and in the NIC2, there might be more. It's like, you know, probably like Ubuntu, you know, we've got a pretty good idea. You know, PHP 5.2.4. I mean, this is just, you know, ridiculously old, right? Like, if anybody was running this in production on the internet these days, they would be in pretty bad shape. So, you know, we've gathered this info, and now we need to find an exploit. So there's a lot of ways in this thing we can tell. I mean, if we just started by going and looking at the web server first off, we just plug in 192.168.226.130, and we're here. And then, you know, we might go to, let's say, Mutilate, and you know, we could look in here and start to say, how could we go about attacking different things in here? And there's quite a few fun lessons in here that we can do. But matter of fact, you know, it would behoove most people that are interested in a subject to probably go through almost everything they can in Mutilate. I love it. There's also damn vulnerable web application. That's also another one here, DVWA. These are really fun. I mean, they're really fun to break in and play with these. Mutilate kind of guides you on a lot of them and gives you a lot of really great info. So it's been a while since I've done these. Like, it's probably been a year since I've been in this thing, in this interface, and since right now. And I don't remember off the top of my head all the little twists and turns in here. So it's fun to just go back in and play around with it too. Even for me, I mean, especially for me, because I have not mastered all this stuff, like, by any means. Matter of fact, I think that this is a subject that takes a lot of knowledge on a lot of things, and I think it just takes quite a bit of work and trying hard, really. And then after you try hard, you just try harder, right? So because you still, like, to be good at this stuff really takes a process and kind of combing through all the itsy bitsy pieces of it constantly. But let's go ahead and just take a look at this one, and let's just see if we could break into it. So first off, we see port 80, and let's just see what are some ways we could directly go straight into this thing. Okay, potentially Samba could be an interesting way. Potentially this, whatever this is, right? This could be a really interesting, just like, okay, bam, right? Now, there's also this FTP sitting here, and there's also a MySQL. There's something else here. There's Postgres, and then there's VNC. So it's like, take your pick, right? I don't see right off the top of my head any kind of, oh, I have to scroll down. Okay, here are a bunch of different things. Here's another thing, a Tomcat Coyote engine, and we could go, okay, 8180, and we could say, well, we're here, but what if we went here at 8180? Is there something else? It's a whole entire another system, and we could say, oh, is there any Tomcat 5.5, right? And we could see, I wonder if I mistyped. I need my exploit DB. Exploit, must be exploit DB. Come on. Let's see. I'm gonna find it. Man, this is a new version of Kali, so give me a sec. I'm gonna get the answer to this. It's not that new. Because if I can just use the normal exploit DB command. Oh, it's search exploit. Alright. Sometimes you get rusty, right? That's why you've got to come back in here and do this stuff, and you have to just, exploit DB. Yeah, you try to run commands that don't exist, and then, on your live stream, right? Because that's how it is in real life, anyway. For anybody that's wondering about Linux, It's like sometimes you're like, it's like, and then you forget, especially if you're working like agnostically on multiple operating systems. Anyway, I'm not going to to get into all that, but okay. Search exploit. Let's see here. Okay. Just gonna toss this over here. Bring this guy up. Throw it over here. And then we're just, okay, so this will expedite things greatly, of course. Having the right tools here. So, okay, first off, let's see. Does this give me any... Let's just take a look at this. Okay, FTP default 2121 Hydra. Hydra attack. We completed 0 passwords found. So one thing that you gotta realize when you run Sparta is that it performs a Hydra attack with a word list against everything it pretty much finds. So before you go running Sparta on a production network somewhere, for any reason, you should be aware you're going to be brute force password attacking all of the services you find. All right. So FYI. Now, I was just checking my trap here to see if it had found one, and it did not, which is totally okay because, you know, at least we know. We don't know a credential for it. Now, let's see if we can find anything in search exploit here related to a Pro FTPD 1.3.1. Pro FTPD 1.3.1. Okay, so we get this. Let's say 1.3. Okay. Sometimes you'll get 1.3. Sometimes there's something that's in a range of versions, or that are like a specific version. It'll be like subversion X or something like that, you know? So let's just see what we can find here. Pro FTPD 1.2 to, okay, so none of those will apply. This is 1.3.1. Okay, so that's not going to do it. 1.3, username SQL injection, maybe. 1.3, oh, nope, 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 nope. 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 2, 3, 5, 5, 5, 1.3.x. Remote command injection. That looks really interesting. And then 1.3.3c, backdoor command execution. Now, we think it's 1.3.1. But let's see. Let's open this up with, let's just open this up and look. So this claims to be 1.3.1. Now, just a note, just because something claims that it is something doesn't necessarily make it that. But for the most part, unless somebody's really trying to throw you off, you know, it might be a good idea to assume that when something claims something, that's what it is. However, the one that seems to be the most interesting to me isn't going to probably apply to our system. It says 1.3 remote command execution. So let's see, let's just go back up here. One thing we'd like to try to find is, if we can, a metasploit module as well. Okay. Pretty sure there is a very easy metasploit module for this one specific one. But again, leveraging a metasploit module, you know, let's see here. Let's take a look at this one though real quick. Metasploit root shell. So I'm just going to see if, let's see here. Okay. There's probably a like a straight up complete like access via something here. What is this? Trying to, okay, we just connected. Let's see who we are. Oh yeah, nice, of course. So literally, like, that's how easy this thing is. You just, I mean, in this case, this is already done. There's nothing magic going on here, but there's a metasploit session already sitting here on this thing, waiting for you to just connect to it. And at that point, you are sort of in here. So, let me see here. It's not, I mean, you're in, and you are also root. So it pretty much is, I mean, it's pretty much like game over on that system right from that, right? However, that's not very useful. That's kind of boring. I mean, it's fun, but you know, oh, there it is. Yeah, I hit that one. You know, okay, boom, and you're in. You know, but that just goes to show, though, like sometimes there's services that are that easy to connect to that are completely unconfigured, just default credentials for, you know, that you can just literally just go right into. All right. So that's just a, you know, a quick example of a way to find something that we can connect to and hit. But individually, there's lots of lessons to be learned from each and every single one of these different things. So we just need to kind of like search for something else that might be interesting. I'm gonna leave that one. Take another one here. Okay, so here is something that appears to be a Tomcat JSP engine 1.1. All right, So it might be a different version. I think we went there. Let's see, 8180. Yeah, 5.5. Okay, so this is 5.5. Is there anything for 5.5 that looks really juicy? Possibly this. Only one. Okay, let's say. All right, let's see here. That's the only one that comes kind of close. Let's see if we can. I mean, let's just. Why not, right? Just kind of, for fun. Let's just see. All right. So first thing let's do is let's use this, and then let's set, okay, let's say show options, set our host 192.168.226.130. Our port is gonna be 8180. Set our port 8180, and then let's just see if we can get it to work or not. So it's gonna do what it does, and failed to upload the payload. So, you know, let's say show options, see if there's anything I might have missed here. Okay. All right. You know, I don't see anything obvious, but just try it again. Sometimes you can run it multiple times, and you know, just because it doesn't work the first time doesn't mean it won't work. Okay, so that one did not really do anything, which is fine. Gotta close some of these windows here, or move them around at least. There's a lot of them. All right. So, a couple of other, like, I'm already moving on to exploitation phase, and I'm getting way ahead of myself. It's fun and it's easy, all that. It's not easy though. It's a lot easier when you've gathered all the information, and we haven't really done that. So, first off, we've we've sort of gotten some things here, and you can see how much information we've got, which is a pretty decent amount right off the bat about, you know, most of our targets. Just sort of very quickly we can see quite a few things. And there's a lot more that we want to learn about these guys. But for the time being, let's go ahead and get some more information. Now, I'm going to go ahead and use a vulnerability scanner. And, like, I don't need to use a vulnerability scanner to get what I want out of this, you know, network. Like, pretty much everything I need is mostly already here. You know, it's in a lot of cases. But, you know, I'd still need to make a lot of connections to things and sort of play around with them and see. But, like, you know, with the amount of information that's presented to me there, I don't really, I have a lot of stuff I can look up before I ever pull out a vulnerability scanner. But for the sake of just doing, you know, the exercise of information gathering in a in an environment like I'm in, I'm gonna want to go ahead and do a vulnerability scan. So the very first thing that I want to do is, let's make a target list. I'll get back in. So making a target list is pretty easy. I just want to go ahead and add a new target here. Click this little star. And then I'm going to call this my NAT. Let's just say that's, you know, the network that I'm connected to. And now I'm going to go ahead and give it a range here. So I'll say 192.168.226.0/24. Should probably do it. I don't really need to give it any other things like credential files or anything, host exclusions. I could give it a file of hosts. So, like, if I was really being slick, which would be much better, I would actually like have taken a dump of my files out of ZenMap, of my IPs out of ZenMap, and I would or out of Sparta, and I would say, okay, I only want to scan these hosts. I'm just gonna scan the whole range, just because I'm noisy and rude and, you know, don't care, because it's my network. It's my NAT. Should create. All right. So now I have my NAT. Now, let's go ahead and say, you know, we don't have any assets in this thing yet, so we need to create a task. And from our list of tasks, yes, we're going to just create a new task. And you can even use, I guess, the task wizard. Yeah, no, we're not going to use task wizard. New task. So we're going to call this probe. We're just going to call this probe. Okay. And it's going to probe my NAT. Are we going to schedule it? No, of course not. Add to assets, yes. What are we scanning with? The OpenVAS default, you know, should be okay. And then how are we scanning? Full fast ultimate. There's full fast very deep ultimate, which is really ridiculous and takes a long time. Full fast ultimate is more than adequate here. Maximum concurrently executed NVTs per host. I think my system can handle this. Maximum concurrently scanned hosts 20. So essentially this thing does hit pretty hard, and you know, it can definitely run up some resources on the network. In addition to that, one other, you know, major point of interest about this thing is that OpenVAS will potentially cause some issues on your network if you, like, well, let's just say if you if you're running OpenVAS and you have a network and you're just in production and you're just running everything you can against everything, you can cause some weird stuff to happen. Like I'll see it all the printers spit out like just garbly-gook, just ream of garbly, just a whole ream, you know, just like here's a ream of paper of garbly-gook, thanks, you know, have a nice day. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I know that it just costed you like $10 in paper, but I mean, whatever, we rent, you know, I mean, good, you know, good deal, right? So there's things we kind of want to avoid. I'm just kind of letting this thing just sort of chill out and run. It's probably going to take it a few minutes before it gets anywhere. Oh, I haven't even started it. So let's go ahead and start the probe. And now the probe is actually running. So let's just see, let's kind of like watch our resources and just kind of see like what happens here. All right. Now, you know, we're basically, let's see, we're still running. We might still be running a few tasks out of here, but these NIC2s might run forever. So we pretty much have all this stuff. So while I have that, I'm gonna go ahead and save this, and I'm just gonna create it. I'm gonna call this mynat. And I'm just going to call this the NAT. It's going to be the name of my Sparta project here. All right, so I have the NAT in my NAT. Now, go ahead and close this quick little probe that I did out. And while I'm running this OpenVAS, I'm just going to, you know, kind of like open up and just browse a couple things in the mynat folder, and the nat dot Sparta file here has an associated subfolder which contains all of the assets that it gathered, which is really very handy, including let's see, was this the word list that it used? I think that may have, if it had found any credentials, I think it would have put them in these files here. Or this may be the word lists that it's supposed to use. I don't recall, but that's okay. The screenshots are all right here. Boom, 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 boom. So you can quickly gather those. And the... Come on. Okay. And most importantly, well, not most importantly, but very importantly, the nmaps. So we have like stage 1. You know, we basically have these nmap files. So I think we should be able to actually take ZenMap and launch it if we wanted to. But let's just see how we're doing here first. This is hitting me hard. So not really. Okay, let's see. Where's my ZenMap? So I believe we can open up the nmap for, let's say, let's just say stage 2, for example. So it's got, you know, all the stuff in it now, and we can see, you know, quite a bit of stuff here. We see that 128 and 130 look like really juicy targets. These other two look you know, a little bit more funky, but at least these two look pretty juicy. And you know, and it's, I mean, obviously, especially the fact that they're both they both have lots of services open. We have lots of information about those services, or at least some. Like in this case, these services aren't as well identified, so we're not able to easily and quickly just say, oh yeah, this one's definitely that. But that's, you know, just another thing we can kind of open that up. But while we're doing our little OpenVAS hit here, let's see how's it doing? How is it doing? Let's see. Is it getting anywhere? Did it find anything? Hopefully it found something. Did I not get my hosts? Yeah. All right. For whatever reason, this thing did not find any hosts. Let's take a look at this. You know, let's just do this differently. So, quickest way to use OpenVAS, as far as I'm concerned, is you know, I do like the to scan the range like that, but just coming in here and running a task and just tossing in and, you know, 192.168.226.130, right? Because that's 226.130 is one that we know we really want to hit. Start scan. Realistically, it's much better to do these on an individual basis anyway. I mean, unless you have you have tons of these things to hit. I like to throw the range in there, but whatever. Okay, now let's see if I can start this other one here. Okay, one of my other favorite tools to use is this one, DIR Buster. So let's say HTTP 192.168.226.130. We're gonna hit 130 here, and we're gonna look for all kinds of stuff, but we're gonna use a word list. And the word list we want should be under where are my word lists? Hang on a second. I gotta remember where they are. Well, where are they? Thought for sure they were in here. Hang on. Oh, yeah. Okay. Here we go. And I like to personally use the DIRB word list, and wherever viable, the big one is pretty decent. Okay, so immediately this thing's gonna start crawling, and it's a word list based crawler, and it's just gonna crawl all these directories, and then it's gonna crawl all their subdirectories. And you know, I think that the directory buster is one of the most amazing tools for finding things that, especially things that are what's this? Server inconsistent. So this the directory buster is, you know, very, very useful. It's able to locate all the directories and subdirectories in many cases of many common file structures, and then it's able to just dig into those and then just keep on crawling. And so sometimes, like, there's stuff that's hidden, or there's things that like an administrator might say, oh, this isn't going to be able to be found, you know, this is buried in an obscure path that's not, you know, you can't enumerate this or something like that. But yeah, in many cases you can, especially if you ask for it, and like I said, you get denied. It's one of those things where, like, it can infer that something's there by being denied access to it, and instead of, you know, that resource just doesn't exist, the, you know, response that comes back might not be the same, and it may be able to infer, hey, this resource does actually exist, and it just doesn't. It's just not available for me to you know, to connect to for some reason. So so we'll let this guy run, and it's just gonna chew along, I guess. The big word list takes some time. I mean, this thing's claiming it's gonna take a million, trillion, zillion years, and I probably will want to, you know, stop it from certain directories, because it's got to crawl everything with everything. And if we were to look at, like, our, let's say, you know, okay, at least we're not completely overloading our processor, but let's just see what we came back up with against out of our open vaz here. See if this guy got anything. If we came up with anything. If it even, if it's even able to communicate with it. I mean, I might have some other issue where it's just like, yeah, I might have another problem going on there. Yeah, I probably need to do some work to see if I can get OpenVaz to properly work, because it doesn't seem to be working right, which doesn't really surprise me that much. So it's been a while since I fired that tool up. All right, so we've done a little bit of enumeration, just some real basic information gathering, and we're not able to really get this to do a whole lot for us yet. There's other vulnerability scanners too that we could use, other environments as well. Nexpose probably being my favorite one. Their community edition version is really great, but it's really, really heavy. I'm just not going to run it here on this thing. This thing's chugging along, it'll take forever, so, you know, to really properly use this, I need to get more, I can't just, like, set it loose against everything. I have to, like, say, okay, I just want to scan this particular, like, directory and look deeper into it. So I need a more specific reason for, like, where I'm targeting this guy, and so that I'm not just, like, blindly going in there trying to, like, find everything, which it would take forever. Like, yeah, you know, I could sit here, like, for days and eventually get somewhere, but that's not what I'm gonna do in this case. You know, of course, I can also use, you know, Burp Suite to break stuff up and look at it when I'm working with it in Firefox too. So I know, you know, we haven't started to, like, dig deeper into any of that. I think right now, I'm gonna take a break for just a second and just see how things are going in the stream here.
talk to anybody, shit. If anything, they should wanna talk to me. Mad bittersweet, so what else is new? It's just a feeling, this too shall pass as so. Hello, the villain is witnessing anything that important. I could either be mad, dense in the head, tense and there's a sore spot. Demon putting my head on a cutting block. We either go round and round until we throw up. Most days suck. I'd like to thank you all for being sour, pussy scowling at me. I'm just trying to tell you my story, then take a bow. You sound crazy,